We are reporting on Trump's crash. The approval rating now cratering to 33%, an abysmal second-term low. Longtime allies see that the ship is sinking. Let's start right here. Trump campaign vet Bannon admitting the GOP is facing these defeats. Tucker Carlson has upended the White House's whole week with his new defection.
Defeat after defeat. Now it's a crushing. Now they turned over the whole frickin' state to him. It'll take us a decade to dig out of this.
I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time.
A long time of torment. I have more on both of those individuals coming up, but I start there because the defections don't come in a vacuum. They reflect an American electorate that is currently done with Trump and what he's doing in his second term. The extremism, the economic failure, the rampant lying, which some people on the right have dismissed when it was directed towards other people or other issues, but now they view it as insult on top of injury, in this case, economic and foreign policy injury. There's a revolt afoot over Trump's failed economy, over his choice to impose this effective war tax on gas. Just 33% of Americans approve of this Trump economy now. And I'm going to tell you something else. Some people may not like it, but one of those elite D.C. narratives has now been proven wrong again when you look at this Trump crash, because we have heard a lot of Republican apologists, especially the elite kind of bubbled type of them in Washington, but also a lot of D.C. media insiders talk about how Trump has this resilient base of support. They talk about it like it's some sort of law of physics, like it can't change and it's special to him. And in many cases, that has actually served as a practical matter to exaggerate and hype how popular Trump is or how much you have to deal with him. He is president. No one's saying you can ignore the entire presidency for a term. But whether you think of him as a popular president who has leverage or a lame duck who's fading, that's a big difference. And that narrative that the Republican Party will just stand by him no matter what, or as he likes to say, he could murder on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. That's ending too. Now a sizable third, 1/3 of Republican voters disapprove of Trump. After the months of inflation, the gas spike, this new war, the rolling Epstein secrecy and Epstein debacle that stretched from late last year into the beginning of this year, and new reports say that Trump aides are sugarcoating the war problems. They're afraid to tell him the truth, that that's part of the war policy planning problem right now. And we have reporting on that. We can get into that. But that I want to point out tonight is a very stark and public contrast to Tucker Carlson and these other MAGA voices who aren't just telling Trump the bad news, not just going to him perhaps in private. They have access to him and his aides and saying, hey, this isn't working. This economy's bad. This is what people are mad about. No, they're going beyond that. They're doing it in public, as we've just seen. And that's driving the very media coverage that Trump cares about so much. The combined polling crash, the defections, the Iran troubles, all of this now has the right-leaning Drudge Report website likening Trump to Jimmy Carter, whose term fell apart over a gas crisis and high prices, and basically getting shown up by Iran, what Drudge calls war confusion. You know, Carter was a rare incumbent who lost after his first term, like Trump. Now, the second term of Trump was supposed to redeem him as a kind of a leader or maybe a more serious person than his early foibles. And yet here he is tonight, according to Drudge and a lot of other indicators, saddled with Carter problems of his own making and Carter-level polling and Carter failures on policy from the economy to Iran. History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes, Mark Twain observed. Well, when it comes to Jimmy Carter, these are some rhymes most Americans would rather do without. Meanwhile, the Republican bid to try to reshape future elections in Virginia just failed. And here's a little more from what I showed you a preview of, the Steve Bannon rant as he took in that news today, going at Republicans.
Defeat after defeat. Now it's a crushing. Now they turned over the whole frickin' state to him. It'll take us a decade to dig out of this. You're damn right you're going to lose the Senate because you've given nothing for people to work for. And right now, folks, take your number 2 pencil out and write this down. We ain't going to be in power.
You're going to lose the Senate. We ain't going to be in power. Get your number 2 pencil for those who don't just type notes on your own iPhone. Now, what does Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones all have in common? Remember what they do now. They have their own dedicated audiences online, and they apparently would rather meet those audiences where they are with, at a minimum, Trump skepticism, if not outright Trump opposition. They'd rather do that now than wait around and look like out-of-touch MAGA elite apologists when this November reckoning comes. I'm not telling you what's going to happen in the November midterms. I don't actually do that. I'm telling you, though, what they appear to think is going to happen. And that's why this is not just about anyone's opinion or voice. It includes that, but also includes what they're bracing for. Now, the anger against Trump around the nation is already reaching Capitol Hill long before any midterm votes are cast. Today, 5 different Trump cabinet officials you see across the board here. There is some work that sometimes gets done in Congress. 5 different officials showing up and facing some members of Congress who appear to channel the concerns of this angry anti-Trump public.
How fast will the price of gasoline come down?
Again, that is path dependent on when the war and the conflict end.
7 million people losing their health insurance because of the Trump administration actions. That's not debatable.
There's nobody who is legally enrolled in Medicaid who is losing coverage.
That is just not true.
Will you guarantee that gas will go back to $3 again before the end of the year?
No one can offer guarantees about the future.
No, they can't. And on it went like that. Now, Americans blame Trump for the higher gas prices. They can see that direct result from starting the war. Financial outlets have covered the Trump tax for weeks. Here's one headline. This is from a couple weeks ago. We picked that on purpose to note how this has been the state of play. We've noted that it's like a war tax on this very program. Today, Senate Democrats are hammering this point with the cumulative numbers. If you add up the tab, all in, American families have paid $16 billion more. That's not $16 billion. That's $16 billion extra. That's the scale of the tax in a very short period of time because of Trump's war. It's the economy, stupid. Or it's the stupid war hurting the economy, or however you put it. As you're about to see, people are upset with Trump's war economy.
What would you grade the economy right now?
Definitely a D. Is there an F up there?
I just really don't think I have faith in this administration.
It's not the greatest economy in the history of our country. It's not blowing out of the water.
People are struggling.
The term right now, it sucks. There's hope, but it's not for everybody. It's difficult.
With him, he doesn't have no plan. Everything just keeps going up and up.
He's gaslighting us or delusional. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's not great and not our best time as a country.
Yeah. The gas is expensive. Gaslighting people about the gas being expensive doesn't work. And those are folks just filling up the tank and going about their day. They're not professional politicians. That's why we do these reported interviews sometimes. You just check in. It anecdotally overlaps with the polling I showed you. Why am I mentioning that as the top story tonight in concert with these other developments? Because when you see Trump backers like Tucker Carlson jump ship after so many years of support, and remember, Tucker broke the journalistic rules and limits from his former outlet employers like Fox and CNN to go directly campaign for Trump. He did it at the convention. And he did it again in the home stretch at that controversial MSG rally in New York. So when you see him flip now, that was not that long ago, and you see people revolting before the midterms, and you see the economy doing what it's doing, it is pretty clear that Tucker Carlson, who once privately confided in someone that he hated Trump, a text I mentioned this week that came out in a lawsuit, then went back to supporting Trump, and then went back. He is a self-fact check. He is a liar. I can only say that rarely when we have the proof. But when you have someone's private text like a diary and them contradicting themselves, you can actually document how he lied to cozy up to Trump when he was up, and now he's lying about why he's ditching Trump when he's out. But the big political point is he's out. Tucker and these other folks, they're not following. some sort of long, clear ideological plan where, oh, if you do this on the war, that's going to break it. No. They are following their own audience and the public and trying to get ahead of what is already the lowest approval of Trump's second term. Trump's aides may have him high on his own supply. Top MAGA leaders have taken a different route. They are planning their own futures as a future without Trump. And that makes you wonder, if it's this bad now, how bad do they think it's going to get for Trump and Republicans?